morning, guys. Welcome to Grammar and Writing Lesson 88. Let's get started with your vocabulary words. The first word, or it's not really the word, it's the focus, is from the Greek word pathos. So the suffix that we get from pathos is pathy. Remember, suffixes are parts of words that go at the end of the word. So the definition for pathos, and therefore for pathy, is feeling or suffering. So it's the idea of linking it to someone's feelings or to their suffering, which is a feeling. So the first word is sympathy. Sympathy. You've probably heard this word. I think in Spanish it's simpatía, I think. Sympathy is to share the feeling of another person. So if you have sympathy for someone, it's because you know what they're feeling. You have personally experienced it. So you share the feeling with that person because you have experienced that feeling yourself. For example, when Mel's cat died, his friends expressed their sympathy. So they feel bad because they know the sadness that he's feeling. Perhaps they've had a pet die as well. So they are sympathetic. The next word is antipathy. Antipathy. Sorry, took me a second to get that out the right way. Antipathy. It's not antipathy, antipathy. This is an aversion or hatred of someone or something. Usually when we see that prefix anti, that means, it's not or it goes against. So it goes against someone's feelings is the idea. An aversion is to be repelled by something, to not like something. So if you have an aversion to someone, you don't want to be around them, you don't like it, or a hatred of someone or something. So for example, the student's antipathy toward math class was abnormal. Meaning normally that student likes math class, but not this time. Apathy. Apathy is our next word. What is it? Think you can guess based on everything that we've looked at so far? Well, if anti means like to go against, a just means like to not be there at all. When you have a in front of something, it negates it. And like we said, pathy is the idea of feelings, suffering. So it would be no feelings, no sufferings. It's a state of indifference or an absence of feeling. For example, the apathy of Christians towards sin is troubling. A lot of Christians these days, we don't care about if someone is sinning or not, just as long as you're not hurting anyone, basically, and that's wrong. And so, but a lot of Christians are indifferent towards towards sin, and so that is troubling. Apathy. Empathy. Empathy. This is similar to sympathy, but it is different. This is the ability to imagine oneself in a condition or situation like that of another person. So sympathy, you share that feeling because you've personally experienced it, so you know what they're going through. But it's uh, not necessarily but you're not putting yourself in the place of that person. Empathy, yes, you put yourself in that person's shoes. You think as that person would think in their situation. So you're imagining yourself as that person going through whatever situation they're going through. The pastor had empathy for those who had gone through difficult times in their lives. So he could think about how he would feel if he were in their situation, how he would react. That's empathy. So empathy is being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Sympathy is feeling bad for someone because you can understand the feelings. All right, so let's fill in the blank with the correct vocabulary word. Number 1, citizens sometimes show their blank by failing to vote during elections. What would that be? Sympathy, antipathy, apathy, or empathy? Number 2, the kind veterinarian showed blank for the sick horse by speaking softly to it and caressing its nose. Caressing, by the way, is just like to rub, to pet. Number 3, Randy understood his friend's situation, for he had blank. Number 4, Zilla had poor nutrition. She had great blank toward vegetables and whole grain breads. All right, let's go over the answers. Number 1, citizens sometimes show their apathy by failing to vote during elections. So it's having no interest at all in the elections, so they don't even vote. Number 2, the kind veteran showed sympathy for the sick horse by speaking to it softly and caressing its nose. So he's showing, oh, I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be sick, and I feel bad for you, that kind of thing. Number 3, Randy understood his friend's situation, for he had empathy. Empathy. He could put himself in his friend's situation, in his friend's shoes, and understand what his friend was going through. Number 4, Zilla had poor nutrition. She had great antipathy toward vegetables and whole grain breads. So she didn't want anything to do with them. She hated them. Antipathy. All right, let's talk about your writing page today. So you're learning to elaborate with sensory details. We talked about elaborating. That means like to add more to your writing. So we talked about elaborating with facts and statistics last week. So now today let's talk about elaborating with sensory details. So the idea here is to create vivid mental pictures by describing how something looks, feels, tastes, sounds, and even smells. So I'm going to give you just some words that could be used to show these different parts of your 5 senses. Obviously, there's a ton of words out there, and more than just one word, but phrases and things and other ways of describing. But this is just kind of to give you an idea to get you started on the right track. So for looks, here are some ideas. Elegant, crystal clear, murky. That's the idea of not being clear at all. You can't see through it. So those are some words that would, if you use those words, you're going to give the reader a very good idea of what you're saying. Each of those words kind of provokes an image, something that's more vivid, more interesting than just saying pretty or dark or even cloudy. Feels, rough, bumpy, sticky. All of those words give you an idea of how something feels. You can almost feel it for yourself. And that's what good writing does. It puts you in the place of whatever you're reading, and you're able to really experience it for yourself with all of your senses. Taste, sour, cheesy, fruity. Sounds, whispered, high-pitched, thundered, that's kind of low and loud. All of those give different ideas of the kind of sound that's being produced, and so it helps your reader to see it more clearly. Smells, rotten, savory, musky. Savory can even be a taste as well. All of those contribute to the perception of the reader when they're reading your work. They can more clearly see with things like this. So make sure that you're looking for good details to use. And I know that for you guys, English is not really your first language. So you may not know all of these words. And when you're trying to write in English, it's harder for you to think of words like this off the top of your head. If you need to, write it first in Spanish and then translate it. Now, when I say then translate it, I'm not saying plug it into a translator on your phone or on your computer and just write out what you've translated. For 2 reasons, don't do that. For one, then you're not really thinking through what you're writing, and you're not learning the English words, and you're not getting a good vocabulary. Number 2, the translator doesn't always translate things correctly. It has mistakes in the way that we use words. So you would need to check it to make sure that that's actually correct, and those are actually the right ways that we would form those sentences. So translators are not reliable to just copy from like that. You can, if you really like, if you're translating on your own, you're just translating what you've written. If there's one word that you would like to look for, that is acceptable. If you're trying to find a specific word and you just can't think of it, that you can look for in a translator, but not your whole sentences, okay? You have to do the majority of the translating by yourself, just maybe 1 or 2 words you can plug into a translator. If you need more than that, well, then you need to change what you're writing so that it's something that you can translate. Okay? All right, so let's talk about what your homework is. You are doing you need to complete elaborating with sensory details, page 74. So it says to study the underlying sensory details in the following paragraph. What picture comes to your mind? What details would you add? So first do that. Then look at the directions and it says, think about the following 3 topic sentences. Then use sensory details to develop any 2 of them into vivid paragraphs. Use a separate piece of paper for pre-writing to list sensory details. Underline each sensory detail in your finished paragraphs. So what they want you to do, first read through that little paragraph to kind of get an idea of what it's like to write using sensory details. And I want you to tell me for each one of the things that's underlined in that paragraph. So you have silhouetted against the pale blue sky, proud head lifting and tossing, long mane flying in the wind. I want you to tell me which sense each phrase appeals to. So in the first one, silhouetted against the pale blue sky, does that appeal to your sense of sight, looks? Is it feels, sounds, smells, or tastes? Okay, so for each one of those, tell me how it appeals or which sense it appeals to. Then go down to where it says, now that's something that I'm adding to the instructions. So if you're not listening to this video, can you send me your homework without those things? So once again, I'll know you're not watching the videos. All right, so using sensory details, I'm going to re-talk through those directions again. So look at those 3 topic sentences. Number 1 says, into the clearing lumbered the legendary monster Bigfoot. Number 2, the droning of the plane grew closer and closer. Number 3, I wish it could be autumn all year. So those are 3 topic sentences. You need to pick 2 that you are going to turn into paragraphs by adding more details. So then it says on a separate piece of paper, they want you to brainstorm. Write those details that you would add. Then write the paragraphs on the page. That's all you gotta do. All right. Have a great day. Love you guys very much. I'll see you in our next lesson. Bye.